If you're helping aging parents right now, or even just starting to think about helping your Asian parents, you'll probably realize something pretty quickly. No one really prepares you for this. No one talks about it. There's no manual. There's no clear roadmap. And most families I talk to, especially here in Long Beach or surrounding cities, are asking the same questions. So what I wanted to do in this video is walk through top 10 questions I hear from families navigating caregiving, senior care, and general home care decisions. I'll try my best to answer them honestly, but the way these conflict and just really the way these conversations actually happen in real life. So number 10 question I get a lot is, how do I start talking with my parents about getting older? And this is where everything starts. I think this is where a lot of people get stuck, or adult children get stuck, because they almost maybe want to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect script, or hey, how do I say this? And I hate to break it to you, that doesn't exist. So instead of trying to have one big conversation that's going to solve everything, I made one more video around this. Is It's a marathon. Start small, start early. It might take months, even years, talking about aging, and make it about them, not about control. So instead of saying something like, we need to talk about your care, try something like, hey, I've been thinking about the future a little bit more. What matters most to you, mom or dad, as you get older? And I think that just is an open question that opens the door without triggering any maybe potentially defensiveness. Because the goal here is really not to win the conversation, it's really to start the conversation. Number 9 question I want to cover is, I don't know anything about my parents' financial situation or legal, so what do I do? This is more common than you think. Again, we don't really talk about it, right? So a lot of families are completely in the dark until there's a crisis, right? And then suddenly you're trying to figure out, what are the accounts mom has, documents, bills, her insurance, all under pressure because you're in a crisis. So very similar. This is about timing. Earlier, the better. Let's talk about these things. You don't need everything at once, but you do need visibility into who handles finances, where the key documents are. Is there a trust? Is there a living will? Whether who's the power of attorneys, whether it's a medical side or financial side. And if this feels uncomfortable, frame it as planning, not prying with your folks. Because when something happens, and it will at some point, having this in place, all these questions and information creates a lot of more order than in chaos. Number 8 question I want to talk about is, how do I handle everything medical? The short answer is you don't, at least not, you don't have to do it alone, at least not initially. One of the biggest mistakes families make is trying to manage everything themselves, whether it's appointments, medications, follow-ups. It really becomes overwhelming really fast for families. So instead of think in terms of coordination, not control, or something medical. So you want a clear PCP, primary care doctor, or point of contact, organized medication list, someone, whether it's you or a sibling or a professional like a geriatrics manager, tracking the big picture. And this is where support like in-home care or care coordination or case management can make a huge difference, because it's just not about just showing up to medical appointments. It's about making sure nothing falls through the cracks for your aging parents. The number 7 question I get a lot is, how do I handle family conflict or sibling disagreements? This happens. It gets real. Caregiving, it's just that caregiving exposes all of this, right? It exposes family dynamics. People have different opinions, different levels of involvement, different expectations. And if you're not careful, it turns into resentment across siblings. So I think here's a shift. Instead of arguing what's fair, focus on what's sustainable in terms of long-term care. Who realistically has the time to take care of an aging parent, who lives closest, who can contribute financially or physically. And just as important, communicate this early. As always, silence is really what builds tension across siblings, not necessarily disagreement. So number 6 I want to talk about is, how do I get them to accept help, aging parents? And this is probably one of the most frustrating questions adult kids ask me, because the instinct is to convince them, to push, to explain why it makes sense. But the more you push, there's actually more resistance. Think about it as it's more about emotion. It's about fear of losing independence, Fear of being a burden, I know my parents do. Fear of change. So instead of trying to win the argument or convincing your parents, acknowledge the fear first. I know this is a big change. I know this might feel really uncomfortable for you. And then, just like anything else, start small. Not full-time care. Again, not a crisis. Maybe just a few hours a week if you need in-home care. And once that trust builds, acceptance often follows in-home care. Number 5, where should my aging parents live? This is one of the biggest decisions families face. Do they stay at home? Do they move in with family? How about assisted living? And really, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. A helpful way to really think about it is what environment supports both safety, quality of life, and of course, what's within budget. For many families that I work with locally here in Los Angeles and Long Beach, staying at home with support through home care services can be a potential best balance because it maintains familiarity with the home, independence, and the comfort. But the key is being realistic about really what level of care is needed, not idealistic. Number 4, how do I get them to stop driving? I have this conversation with my dad a lot. And this is one of the toughest conversations because driving often represents independence. So when you take that away, it feels very personal. Again, don't lead with control, lead with concern, open-ended questions, involve third parties when needed. So you might include your doctor, might talk about it, having a driving assessment, because it lands differently when it's coming directly from a professional or an outsider versus, say, a daughter or a son. So think about that, right? And if they stop driving, how are they going to get out? Think about, are they running errands? Are they seeing friends? Again, you have to think about if you remove that independence without replacing it, you also create potentially isolation for an aging parent. Number 3, what do I do differently if dementia is involved? So everything changes. And I don't say that to scare you, but prepare yourself for this disease if it happens. Because dementia isn't just about memory loss. It affects judgment, behavior, communication, thought process. Logic becomes less effective, and the approach becomes everything. You're not there correcting them. You're not. You're more about redirecting them when they have dementia. You're meeting them where they are instead of trying to pull them back to reality because they're not themselves. And this is where specialized support like dementia care becomes important because it requires a different skill set, this disease. So that's for dementia. Number 2, how do I find reliable outside care? So this is where families feel the most uncertain because you're bringing someone into your home, a stranger from your perspective. Trust matters. So here's what I would look for. Some basic things. Is the agency licensed and insured? Can you see that? Are they all their employees? Do they train their caregivers? Do they supervise and stay involved after a placement of a caregiver? And just as important, how do they communicate? Are they transparent? Are they timely? Can you get a hold of a live person? Because good home care isn't just about a caregiver. It's really about a system behind the agency and the caregiver, especially in a place like Los Angeles or Long Beach where there are a lot of options. So choosing the right partner really makes a big difference. And the number 1 question I want to tackle today is how do you honor their wishes while keeping them safe? So this is one of the hardest questions because those two things sometimes feel like they're in conflict. An aging parent wants independence. You want safety, and both are very valid. So the goal is not to choose one over the other. It's about finding the right balance where you respect their autonomy while putting guardrails in place. And maybe that means starting with some sort of part-time in-home support instead of full-time, making a gradual change instead of a sudden one, and of course, involving them in decisions as much as possible. Because when people feel included, they're part of the decision-making, they're more likely to accept the support. So if you're going through this right now, just know you're not the only one asking all these questions. It gets asked every day. Every family navigating care, senior care, aging, home care goes through some version of some of these questions. And the biggest mistake I see is just waiting too long to start the conversation or to build a plan. Because the earlier you start, just like prevention of disease, the more options you have. And if you're here locally, here in Long Beach, where I'm at, trying to figure this out, whether it's a conversation, you're thinking about care options, or just understanding what's next, getting the right professional guidance early can make the process a lot less overwhelming. So if you take anything away from this video, I think it's just really this. You don't have to have all the answers, but you do need to start asking the right questions and a lot earlier because it takes time. And you don't want to be asking these questions in a crisis mode, or dad just got discharged from the hospital and we don't want to know what to do as a family. So as always, if you found this video helpful, please like, please share, and subscribe to our channel.